Hey guys, thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to be going over Ethereum. One of the videos that I've made for Bitcoin and XRP in the past are your yearly 2-year, 3-year, and 4-year ROI. So we're going to look at the same thing with Ethereum. We are going to look at it a little bit differently. Please subscribe to the channel and like the video if you guys like this content. I also have a Telegram channel and a Discord channel that I just made if you guys prefer that. But what we're going to go over is the ROI versus time. And in the past, we looked at it in terms of, if you had bought on a specific date, what would your ROI have been a year later? And I got some comments that people prefer to say, what today would your ROI be if you bought a year prior? So really, you get the same results. It's just the graph is shifted by however many years you're looking at. So you can see here, we're in December of 2019, and your ROI on Ethereum would be a little bit above 1. So 10 to the 0 is 1, and 10 to the 1 is 10. So if you had bought Ethereum a year ago, then your ROI would be somewhere around 1.5. And this is the result since inception. So it's an interesting graph, and we're going to go through these 1, 2, 3, and 4 years, and then we're going to compare them to Bitcoin to try to understand, get a larger perspective on where we might be. So the 2-year ROI looks like this. So you can see we came all the way up to around 1,000x if you had bought in 3 years before January 2018. So if you had bought in 2015, you would have had if you had bought January 2015, you would have seen 1,000x ROI, and if you had sold in 2018, and then you can see it's steadily gone down. Now, I don't want this to be scary because Bitcoin has also done very similar things to this, and we'll get to that later on in the video. But the reason this is because, Ethereum went all the way up from $1,400 to around $100 over the course of a couple years. So it makes sense that we would see something that looks like this. Now the 3-year ROI looks a little bit different. You can see if you've ever bought Ethereum and you held on to it for 3 years. Now, given it's only been around for around 4 years, so it's not like we have a whole lot of data to work with. But if you had bought it and held it for 3 years, you would be averaging around a minimum of a 10x ROI, even today. If you had bought it 3 years ago, despite the bear market, you'd still be around a 10x ROI, and you could have cashed out upwards of several 100x. And remember, this is if you had bought it and then sold it exactly 3 years later. You're not trying to time anything, you're just selling it a specific number of years later. And the 4-year ROI looks even different. You can see there's only a few months of it because it's only a little over 4 years old. But you can see the 4-year ROI on Ethereum is quite phenomenal. Mainly between 100 and 300x, which is insane. So, the moral of the story for Ethereum so far is, as the famous quote goes, it's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market. So remember that. Now let's compare all this with Bitcoin. So if you look at Bitcoin, and we've changed this to normalize it so that we can compare them 1-to-1, we're looking at days since inception. So it starts here because it's 365 days after both were created. You can see that they have peaks around the same, around 100x, and then they both go down to around the same point. So Bitcoin came all the way down to around 2 times 10 to the minus 1, so that would be 0.2. So your ROI would have been 0.2. So obviously that means you're losing 80% of your investment, whereas Ethereum came down to around 0.1, so you'd be losing 90%. But you can see that Bitcoin came down to this level several times, and every time it is seeing a trend reversal, and Ethereum is currently in that reversal. You can see that we recently went above 1, which means that if you had bought it a year ago, you would be a net gain on your ROI. You would be around 1.5x on your ROI. And you can also see that anytime Bitcoin crossed 10 to the 0, whenever it crossed 10 to the 0, more or less, sometimes maybe it bounced back down for a few days. But once it crossed it kept going until it went up above, between say 20 and 80x or so. And currently Bitcoin is over here, just past the 10 to the 0. So we'll see where it goes. But clearly, Bitcoin has done a lot of very similar things to Ethereum in the past, and the market sentiment has been the same, and yet it's still recovered. That's not to say that Ethereum has to recover, but it's just similar market sentiment has existed for these other coins, and they still went on to higher highs. If we look at the 2-year ROI, I think it's very telling. So you can see that Bitcoin also had a very similar 2-year ROI, where around here it hit a bottom, which is currently where Ethereum is. We might expect Ethereum to come down a little bit more, but remember, if the 2-year ROI, so currently that would put us at December of 2017, we're going to come down more. The only way we wouldn't continue to come down is if Ethereum jumps to $1,400 tomorrow. So assuming we don't jump to $1,400, we're going to be looking at our 2-year buy-in price, and then selling it today would obviously be a loss. So we might expect it to see all the way come down to 10 to the minus 1, even if Ethereum stays exactly where it is, because if it stays exactly where it is, it's around 150, and at the peak in January of 2018, it was around $1,400, so that's going to be around a 10 to the minus 1. And then we would be looking to see a strong reversal in this pattern. Here's a 3-year ROI. So this is a very similar idea. You can see that Bitcoin came all the way down here before going back up. Ethereum is doing the same thing. What this means, if it were to emulate Bitcoin, it would mean that in January of 2021, if Ethereum were worth $700, it would still come down to around this point, because it still would be around a 50% loss compared to the all-time high in January of 2018. Because in January 2018 we were at around $1,400. So if Ethereum were still worth between say $700 and $800 in January of 2021, this graph would still be showing this decreasing pattern just because of the time you bought in. And then finally, the 4-year ROI. You can see that Bitcoin has historically been around a 10x. If you just buy it, hold it for 4 years, and then sell it, then your minimum would be around a 10x, except for a few of these weeks that it just briefly dips below it. So with Ethereum, if we were to see something similar, I think it's definitely a good time to be buying Ethereum. That doesn't mean it's not going to go down further. It obviously could. If Bitcoin decides it's going to take a nosedive in the short term, then I'm sure Ethereum is going to see a price drop as well. But the point is if we're not fully sure, if and when that sort of stuff might happen. So if you can be disciplined about, your cryptocurrency investments, if you can just buy things, buy coins that you really believe in, like Bitcoin or like Ethereum, and you can just hold them for, 3 to 4 years, then historically you would be doing quite well. Now, obviously, the obvious caveat is the history of something does not necessarily mean it's going to keep doing well, but we can at least use it to inform our decisions. If you guys like this content, please subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on, and like the video. And remember to join my Telegram channel and to follow me on Twitter if you guys want to see more updates. And then finally, if you have any requests for stuff that I look at, let me know, and I can try to put something together. Alright guys, I hope you guys like this video of Ethereum, the ROI on Ethereum, the 1 year through the 4 year ROI, and the comparison to Bitcoin, and I will see you next time. Bye.